What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Cosmic Wonder, where we talk all things Marvel and MCU. And with the new Daredevil Born Again series announced for Disney Plus coming in the spring of 2024, I know that fans are really excited to finally have Charlie Cox playing Matt Murdock again back in the MCU for longer than a quick cameo in Spider-Man No Way Home. But at the same time, I also know that some fans are kind of worried that Marvel Studios is kind of going to water down Daredevil a little bit. The Netflix Daredevil series is amazing, and it's brutal, and it's very dark. And this, I think, is where the concern mostly stems from, that Disney is going to take that darkness and brutality and water it down, to where in the MCU we have a Daredevil that's not that dark and not that brutal. Well, today we have some bad news about that, but I also think we have some good news about that at the same time. And we will be covering the Daredevil series and everything concerning Daredevil leading up to the series, so if you want to stay up to date with Daredevil and the rest of the MCU, be sure to subscribe. Now, we all know that Daredevil is going to be appearing in She-Hulk. Not only have we seen him in some of the trailers, but they announced this at San Diego Comic-Con, so it's no secret. However, we have recently found out what kind of Daredevil we can expect to see in She-Hulk. And it looks like we are going to be seeing a different side, a lighter side of Matt Murdock / Daredevil in the She-Hulk series. And I know this may bum some people out, but stick with me in this video and I'll explain why this isn't such a bad thing. But first, let's talk about what was recently revealed. This report and news is coming from TheDirect.com in an exclusive interview with Jessica Gao, the creator and head writer of the show. And in this interview, she talks about how we are going to see a lighter side of Daredevil, but also a lighter side of all the cameos that are going to be coming in She-Hulk. And it looks like there are indeed going to be quite a few cameos. And fingers still crossed that the Thing from the Fantastic Four could show up, although at this point it seems like a long shot, but hey, you never know. But here is what she had to say about the lighter side of Daredevil and actually using Daredevil in She-Hulk. She starts off by saying, well, first of all, we were shocked that we were able to use him. Like, when we first heard that he was on the table, we couldn't believe it. We kept thinking like, okay, at some point, someone's gonna say, just kidding. Like, it's a cruel joke, and you can't actually have him. And it just kept going and kept going. Now, obviously, it wasn't a joke. Daredevil is in the show. We've seen him in the trailers. And that would be a really cruel joke to play. But she continues on and says, and Charlie is so wonderful. He's so game to do whatever, and he's such a wonderful actor and a wonderful human being. What was so fun about bringing him and Daredevil into our world is that people have already seen a Daredevil who is very dramatic, a little bit on the heavy side, very dark, brooding. And yes, that is the Daredevil that we know. That is the Daredevil that I think a lot of people actually really want to see. But here's where things get a little bit different. She continues on and she says, and it was so fun to be able to do, and we do this with every character cameo from the MCU, is we take them from the environment that you know them from, which is a much more dramatic and action-oriented role, much more on the serious side, and we bring them into our world and they get to play in the tone of She-Hulk. And they got to explore, and we get to see a lighter side of that character. So don't freak out just yet about seeing a lighter side of Daredevil. There are a few things to note about what she said that are very important. One is that she confirmed that there are going to be a lot of cameos. She said it was fun to be able to do, and they do this with every character cameo from the MCU. So cameos are coming. Now, we've already seen some. We've seen Emil Blonsky back as Abomination. We've seen Wong. I even think there could be a Shang-Chi connection here. After all, Simu Liu did tease that he is showing up in other projects before his next Shang-Chi project. Of course, we have Daredevil, and again, fingers crossed for the Fantastic Four or possibly even a mutant. Heck, if we're lucky, we'll get a Doctor Doom reference or a Doctor Doom cameo, but not holding my breath for that. Main point, She-Hulk is going to bring in a lot of cameos. But of course, what everybody is concerned about is that Jessica Gao said that we are going to see a lighter side of the character that is Daredevil. A lot of people don't want this, but she specifies that they get to play into the tone of She-Hulk. I have seen a lot of people freaking out online stating that they don't want a lighter Daredevil, but you have to keep in mind, Daredevil is going to be in She-Hulk, so Daredevil has to match the tone of She-Hulk. And She-Hulk is a comedy. She-Hulk oftentimes in the comics breaks the fourth wall, much like Deadpool. And I'm pretty sure she's gonna do that in the show as well. And this show has the potential to be very great. But back to Daredevil, keep in mind, this is just him debuting in She-Hulk. So of course they're going to match the tone of She-Hulk. This does not mean that Daredevil, the character and the show itself, is going to be lighter. And think about it, at this point in time in the MCU, we have had plenty of instances where we get dark and brooding characters, where we've had violence and horror and things that basically fit with the tone of Daredevil. We've had John Walker basically decapitate somebody with the shield of Captain America. Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness showed us some pretty brutal scenes, especially with the Illuminati. And don't forget, Deadpool is going to be rated R, and Blade is coming to the MCU as well. And Blade is a pretty dark character. And plus, not to mention, the Thunderbolts movie is coming as well, and these are essentially super villains coming together to do dirty jobs. I doubt that's going to be a light-hearted movie. Sure, some of these movies may crack jokes, but the action and the characters are going to be probably pretty dark and brutal. So despite hearing that Daredevil's MCU debut outside of Spider-Man No Way Home, but his debut as actual Daredevil, not Matt Murdock, but Daredevil, despite hearing that the Daredevil debut is going to be lighter than normal, don't think that that means that Marvel Studios is changing the character to a much more lighter version. That's not what that means. They are simply putting Daredevil into She-Hulk, and they're going to match the tone of the show, which is going to be a lighthearted comedy with some action in it. And this is actually a good thing. Think of it like this. We are going to be getting a Daredevil and Spider-Man team up. Kevin Feige actually confirmed this at San Diego Comic-Con. He said that Spider-Man and Daredevil are both going to be a part of the Street Team.
And as you start to see, you talk about Ghost Rider, we've got Blade, we've got Doctor Strange, we've got the supernatural angles, we've got the street level with our announcement of Daredevil, and of course Spidey going into the street level heroes, and Cosmic.
So one can imagine that when Daredevil is teamed up with Spider-Man in the MCU, the character is also going to be a little bit more lighthearted. Not the dark and brooding one who bashes blood out of people all the time that we're used to. They're not going to have that version of Daredevil with Spider-Man, but in his own show, they can, and I'm assuming they will, and it's 18 episodes long. And of course, we have D'Onofrio back as Kingpin, so the same chemistry is going to be there between Charlie Cox and D'Onofrio. So for those who are worried about this statement that Daredevil is going to be a much lighter version in She-Hulk, do not worry. I do not believe that that is going to be permanent in any way at all. They are simply adjusting to fit the tone of the show, much like they will do with the Spider-Man team up as well. But once the Daredevil series comes, I'm assuming that that dark and brooding tone is going to come back. And of course, I trust in Kevin Feige. After all, they are dedicating 18 episodes, which is 2 times as much as we've seen so far. Or I should say, about to see with She-Hulk. They are clearly giving him the attention and time that he deserves, so I'm not worried about it. But hey, let me know your thoughts about this in the comments down below, and please don't forget to like the video and subscribe so you don't miss out on any of the latest news. For live updates, you can follow me on Instagram and Twitter, and as always, thank you all so much for watching. Woof woof.